All right, now let's get into it. Today on the First Time Storytelling Broadcast, my guest is Sarah Carter. Sarah is a Navy veteran who piloted both the P-3 Charlie and P-8 Alpha for thousands of hours during her 10-year career. It was as an officer in the Navy that she discovered her passion for encouraging others to better themselves. So upon her departure from active duty service in 2018, Sarah obtained her certification as a personal and executive coach and launched her own life and leadership coaching business. Now, like I said, she also happens to be one of those amazing coaches you'll find the 365 First Challenge Facebook group because she is a next level first coach as well. Sarah is here to share the story of her first time piloting a plane at night. Welcome to the broadcast, Sarah.
Hi, Anne. Thanks for having me.
All right, very happy to have you. So let's start your story with what made you want to become a naval aviator?
It's going to sound so cliche when you hear it, Anne, but maybe not the most cliche because no, it wasn't Top Gun. So Tom Cruise on a motorcycle is still very dreamy. I took a spring break vacation with some girlfriends in high school to Destin, Florida from New Orleans, Louisiana. And along the way, you have to pass through Pensacola. And we just so happened to catch it on a day where the Blue Angels were having a home air show. Yeah, so we were on the beach. We had no idea what was going on. I mean, we're high school girls. Planes are like the last thing on our social to-do list. And we are on the beach and we see these planes zooming by. And I was just in awe. And I remember going home thinking, I have to figure out how I can do that. So that's what led me down the whole path. I started really putting my high school courses in order because I was taking a lighter load than I probably should have. So I started reorganizing my high school courses. So there was some more math, some more science, some more things that would get me into a school that would get me to a flight spot, which ended up being the Merchant Marine Academy, which is a whole other thing we could talk about on a different time. But I knew, or I found out that by going to the Merchant Marine Academy, when I graduated, I had the opportunity to go into any active duty service. So I didn't have to pick Navy or Air Force or Army or Marine Corps right off the bat. I could kind of feel them all out as I was going through school and see who would give me a flight spot. That was the nexus, and that was the dream. So I went to the Merchant Marine Academy, which most people go from there and sail on their merchant license. So they sail these big giant cargo ships and make tons of money. And I was like, I'm good. I want to go fly planes. People still look at me like I'm a little crazy.
Oh, man. All right. So you join the Navy, you become a naval aviator, and you start flying. Get us into that space of what it's like to be a pilot, explain a little bit more the type of plane that you were flying, and then let's get into that night flight.
Yeah. So you'd think it would happen that fast. You'd think you'd graduate, you'd go straight down to Pensacola for your training, and that's how it would happen. Not the case. There's tons of people out there like me who see either dreamy Tom Cruise on a motorcycle or who see the Blue Angels and want to go fly planes. So the training timeline, there's a wait at the very beginning. And I wasn't really sure what to do with myself. I was told you're going to have probably a year to sit around before you start flight training for the Navy. So I told my detailer, the person who was managing my career, that, I don't know, send me somewhere where I can gain some experience. And they said, well, we can't get you any cockpit experience, but we can get you some Navy experience. So they sent me to Seattle, Washington to be a recruiter for about 6 months, which is about as far away from flying an airplane.
Or Navy experience for that matter.
Right. So I go out there right after college and I'm like, I have to do something to start to learn. I couldn't let all these math skills and science skills and things I had learned at school go to lapse. What do I do? Well, I'd heard that the first step in naval aviation is a thing called IFS, or initial flight screening. And it's where you go out with a civilian pilot and you fly a small single engine plane like a Cessna or a Citation, and you learn the basics there. But you're not guaranteed to fly with the same person every time. You're not guaranteed to fly the same plane every time or at the same airfield every time. It was still a very new program. They were still trying to figure out how it would work. And it sounded bad to me because I know I'm one of those people who needs that consistency. So I decided to take it on myself and get my own private pilot's license. So I talked to my commanding officer at my recruiting station, told him what my intentions were, and he was all for it. He's like, do it. Prioritize your flying time. I don't really need you to be here, pushing papers and getting coffee for me. So figure out what it's going to take. And that's how I've stumbled upon Payne Field, which is just outside of Everett, Washington, just north of Seattle, and this little tiny flight school, and started up. I found out that then, I don't know what it is now, I needed 46 hours to get my private pilot's license, which
it's still around that. So that's one of the things I want to do. And it's like 40, that doesn't, I feel like it should be 100 something hours, right? Like 46 hours. Am I going to be ready after that short amount of time? So no, that's not.
I did it in 47. Yeah, I did it in 47, but I thought the same thing. I was like, oh my gosh, 46 hours, you're going to let me go rent a plane, sign off for everything? What? But one of the hurdles through it, so there's several milestones you have to hit, and one of them is night flying. You have to get a certain amount of night hours. And you start doing it later into your time, like it's not the first thing you do, but so it's about midway. And up until then, I'd had the same instructor. I'd really enjoyed it. I'd gotten the basics down, but I wouldn't say that I was inspired. It kind of felt like being on a highway. You're looking for your checkpoints, and you're driving, you're flying along, you're talking to some people on the radio, but it wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't inspiring. Yeah.
It was no Blue Angel. I expected this to be a little bit more exciting.
Exactly. I'm flying this little tiny single engine Cessna that goes maybe 80 miles an hour. You're not moving. You're just kind of doing your thing. Like you're keeping up with the traffic on I-5 is what you're doing. You're just a couple hundred feet above them. So I wasn't inspired. So we go out. He tells me, okay, tomorrow's going to be our first night flight. And we met at the schoolhouse. It was like 8:00 at night. So when I get there, the lights are all off. There's no lights on except for he's got a red light over the chart that we're working on. And I'm asking him why are all the lights off? He tells me how important it is to get your eyes trained for
your night vision.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, I hadn't really ever considered before how important that is. So we're getting our eyes trained. We're doing all of our pre-flight stuff that we would normally do. Still feels like a pretty normal day. We head out. We take off, and I just remember thinking how beautiful it was as soon as we took off. I've flown in big planes before, big passenger planes, and I guess it was different though, because it was me doing it. So it felt like I was not really along for the ride, but I was actively participating in this adventure to wherever we were going, and I could see just how different everything looked at night. The contrast between the blackness of the mountains and the blackness of the Puget Sound, and then the dense lights between 5 and 405, I think it is, but the two highways, and then all of the little, the lakes in between, just the extreme contrast in dark and light as we're making our way. So the whole point of the flight he wanted to show me was to take me over the Seattle Tacoma airport. There's a VFR transition zone where little putsy planes like us could fly over the runway and look down on the big planes taking off as we're just cruising over top of them. So he wanted me to see how that looked. And I'm like, okay, I didn't, again, really get the gravity of it until we make our way. We followed 5 down, literally following it, like looking out the plane, staying over the highway. And we get to the airfield, and he requests the VFR transition, and we descend. We had been up at like think maybe 2,000 feet. We would descend down to 700 feet, which seems so low. And you can see, and he's like, I have the controls. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like glued to the window, looking at these planes take off. So one was at the starting point of the runway, and the other one, and it was getting ready to fire up, and it starts going underneath us, driving along. And then you can see the moment it rotates, and its lights light up. It was kind of foggy at this point, so its lights light up the fog a little bit, and it just lights up the whole thing, and it's whole where it's going. And it feels so close. We're 700 feet in this plane.
Yeah.
Huge passenger plane. It's going underneath us. I'm like, where are you going? And it was so neat. As soon as we got through there, I don't think he had planned on it, but I was like, can we do it again? So we must have gone through 2 or 3 times just watching planes take off from a bird's eye view. And that was inspirational, just to see the mechanics of it, to feel like you really had control of this, I don't know, a totally adventurous experience while you're observing these other people just going about their business.
Yeah.
They're going about their day. And then on the way back, we followed the water line of the Puget Sound, and we stayed pretty low, so you could see the houses and you could see the ships on the water. And it was just a completely different landscape. It was also very quiet. Normally during the day, there's people chatting all over the radio, requesting different things, but private people don't fly as much at night. So it was quiet and very peaceful, and the stars were out and the moon was out, and it was a totally different experience than the daytime. So that was pivotal in my piloting career. It became my favorite thing to do. Was if there was a night flight, I was on it. That's what I wanted every single time.
Oh, wow. So I have to say, a couple of things, we started talking about night vision, you gave me a flashback to TBS. And when we did night operations, they would take us out, and we would literally just sit in the field for about a half hour just to get our night vision. And you were waiting for that one idiot that would turn their flashlight on and ruin it for you. But so that brought that flashback. And then when you submitted your story, what I imagined was you flying with NVGs on the P8 Charlie or the P8 Alpha on one of the bigger planes. So this was nice. This is a much different story than what I anticipated. But it sounds like even after you started flying the bigger planes, that nighttime still remain your favorite time. And now, did you start flying with NVGs, or is the whole time just your instrument and your night vision?
Yeah, so eventually when I started flying bigger planes, I had to get my instrument flight rating so that I could fly not just at night, but higher up and in altitude and on what we call highways in the sky. But you don't ever stop flying the night flights. And in the P3, the P8 to a degree as well, a lot of your flying is out over water. And when I was flying the P8, it was still very new. We still weren't flying down super low, but the P3, you could take that plane down to about 200 feet off the water, which it's a giant plane. Its wingspan is, so much. So if you tilt a little bit, that water feels really close. And we flew several times at night where you're watching. We don't fly on NVGs, to answer your question, I guess is the easy, simple question. We don't fly on NVGs because there are so many instruments and there's so many other lights going on, and we're usually up much higher that we don't need them. So even when we're down low, we're not on them, but we use other things like the white caps of the waves. The bioluminescence is a big thing that we'll use especially if we're out there looking for ships. It's amazing. It'll leave this just greenish blue trail behind the ship of these little animals that it's disturbed, and they're freaking out, so they're lighting up. They're kind of like lightning bugs, I guess.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really neat. It's kind of like it makes a ship really hard to hide because there it is. Follow the trail. So that was cool. And then obviously, if it's a flat night, you'll get the moon reflection, and you'll get all the different stars reflections too. You'll get obviously your lights as well. But yeah, it always continued to be something that I really enjoyed, just a completely different environment to be in.
Mm, that's awesome. So now, how long did it take? So you did your 47 hours, you got your certification. Did you start renting planes and flying by yourself, or did you rapidly find yourself in school to get your next level license?
So I continued to do some flying when I was still up in Seattle, but I wasn't there for too long. And then I moved down to Pensacola, drove down with my dad. That was a really fun road trip. We decided to take the upside down L, and we went through Montana and Wyoming and North Dakota, South Dakota, and then straight down, which is just really neat. And I get to Pensacola and I'm like, yes, let's start. No, the training pipeline's still backed up. So I still had to wait a few months. But I got what I did during that time instead of flying. I probably should have stayed flying, but I got some books from the people who were ahead of me to learn the next plane that we were going to be in, which was the T-34. Still a single engine thing, but a much more aggressive single engine thing. And I started to learn and figure that out to get ahead of the game. And actually, my last check ride in the T-34 was at night because I love flying at night. So it was at night, and it was out to Alabama, and we came back, and it just, again, another beautiful, clear night for flying. And my pilot at the end of that told me, he's like, wow, I don't think I said a single word the entire time you got us there and back. I'd say you're good to go. Awesome.
Now, is that common? Do most, like as far as enjoying flying at night, do a lot of pilots like that? Or did you find a lot of your peers were like, nah?
Not a lot of people I flew with really liked it. I gained a reputation for being the person that would fly at night. In fact, I had a commanding officer at one point start calling me the vampire pilot because he felt like he never saw me during the day. I was never hanging around the squadron during the day. I was always resting up for some night flight. So no, I don't know that it's common. I definitely, out of my peer group, was the one that enjoyed it the most.
Now, did you or did you not fly at night in combat?
We did, yeah. We flew. So the only combat missions I have, because it's uncommon for the types of planes that I flew to fly in, well, and from where I flew them in. So I flew all of my deployments out of Japan, which is, while it is one of our areas, wasn't really part of any of the operations Enduring Freedom. We flew to the Philippines and participated in IEFP for a couple of missions, but even those were still far between for us, since our platform is more of a sub-hunting ISR, so reconnaissance.
Yeah.
We're not really
Explain the water.
yeah, we're not really out there trying to hunt the bad
Yeah.
guys. There's no guns on any of my planes. We can mount weapons, but we weren't any sort of close air support.
Yeah.
What we were, though, was we had radios out the wazoo on both the planes. So anyone on the ground trying to radio back anywhere could use us as a go-between.
As a relay station.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So down in the Philippines, where there's mountains and there's terrain to deal with, we would get called in to be that overflight. Yeah, which was neat. And so we'd fly some missions at night, which was kind of cool because you can't see the people on the ground. We weren't too high up, but again, we're high up enough that you can't see them. I'm not staring in their eyes as they go storm a hill or anything, but you know what they're doing down there, and you're listening to them talk about it, and you're listening to what they're going through, and you're listening to the orders they're receiving back on the other end. And it puts you in that mindset of like, oh my gosh, these guys are in this dark, crazy jungle thank goodness I'm here on my plane that has a toilet and a coffee pot. I have the much cushier job, and you get wrapped up in it. You know, we flew the couple nights we flew, the weather was terrible. So we're up there in the clouds, in the turbulence, in the bumps, just taking a beating. But these poor guys on the ground were taking the storm head on. I mean, they're down there in the mud You can hear it when they're calling on the radio. It's not static. It's those big tropical raindrops coming in on them. So we're listening to them like, oh gosh, guys, be careful. And you're really wrapped up in it.
That's awesome.
It was awesome. That was probably the favorite. So we were down there for a month flying some missions with them. And that was probably my favorite deployment time.
Yeah. So when's the last time you've flown?
Oh, this is embarrassing. Too long. My last duty station was a desk job, and but a demanding desk job. So I didn't get a lot of flying. And we were in Washington, D.C., and the airspace there, probably not so much now, but the airspace there is just about as crowded as the Beltway. You can't, everybody and their brother's got a helicopter or single engine plane or something that they're trying to putz around in the air on top of all of the big commercial air traffic that's coming in. So I didn't do a lot of flying. I think the last time I flew was 2017 with a friend of mine. She's actually a Coast Guard helicopter pilot. So we rented this little plane and these two little girls, these two small women, she and I both don't top 5'5", and we take this plane out and we went someplace for lunch out in Maryland, and we land at the little tiny runway, little tiny airstrip. We tie the plane down, and it wasn't until we look up that we realized there are people staring at us. It's still pretty uncommon to see a plane just piloted by women.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the last time I flew, but obviously a very memorable time.
Oh, how long? So do you feel to get to fly again, you would need a refresher course, or just one of those you get back in and you'd be good to go?
I would feel uncomfortable without a refresher course. There is a school out here. So there's a flying club on Kadena Air Base. And I've toyed with it. I've wanted to do it. I've been very busy since I moved out here. And to be honest, Okinawa in the summertime is unpleasant to sit outside in, much less to go do anything outside in. So it's one of those things I need to do and just haven't done, but I would love to. And for sure when we get back to the States, I'm going to get back into it.
Yeah. Oh man. It's one of the reasons why I haven't started going towards getting my license yet, because what's the point of getting it and then not being able to fly, and then it lapses, and then, you're not ready to get back up there. So I definitely want to line it up that once I get it, I have time to regularly fly, or things have really taken off and I can rent a plane regularly or buy a plane and pilot it myself. So, yeah.
For sure. I don't have aspirations to buy one, but people have shares. So my friend who was the Coast Guard female pilot that I went with, she had a share in a plane. So there were about 5 of them, and they all pitched in to buy this plane, and then they worked out their schedule for who was taking it, what and where and when, to cover the costs. I'm like, man, that sounds great. Let's do that.
That's probably the right smart way of doing it. Yeah, for sure. Because I figured and then depending on the size of the plane, you really can't go all that far without having to refuel and all of that. But looking at little man, I'm like, I'm going to have to either being able to fly us places so he doesn't have to go in the belly of the plane, or be able to rent one. He's my motivation to make it big, so my flying options change, so it's much easier to take him to all the places I want to go to in the future.
You just reminded me, I'm glad you brought up little man. My dog Heidi loved to fly with me. She thought that was the greatest thing. Every time I took her up, I put her I had her little earphones to put on, and she would just sit there in the window, and I know she couldn't see anything. It was just clouds, or it was just, it can't be nearly as exciting as a car ride, but she thought it was great. Her tail would go the whole time. She thought it was her favorite thing.
Oh man, that's awesome. Do they have to wear That's gonna be interesting with little
Earphones?
man. Yeah,
They don't
but
have to, but
but,
it is noisy.
yeah.
And I mean, we through all the Navy training and all the flight training, they talk about how important it is to protect your hearing because there is a lot of background noise. That engine's loud. You know, the P3's got 4 giant engines. That thing is loud. So they do talk about the hearing. And since dogs' ears are so sensitive
So,
already,
yeah.
I just figured, and she didn't care. She got used to me putting crazy things on her head. I had her favorite little thing was this little sombrero that we had. She got used to it and really didn't care.
All right, that's awesome. All right,
Yeah.
so before we move to the first time lightning round,
Yeah.
tell people how to get in touch with you if they're looking for a coach or they just want to reach out.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of ways to get in touch with me. The easiest way is either through the Next Level First coaching site and on the list of coaches there, or through my personal site, which if you can see it, it's inwiththenewU.com, and fill out the contact form. That'll shoot me an email. That's the easiest way. I'm also on Facebook. My business is New You Coaching, LLC, and that's Facebook, Instagram. I'm all over it.
All right, yes, she is. Okay, so the first time lightning round, the way it works is I'm going to give you 10 first time options. If it's something you've done before, you'll say up, swipe up. So similar if you are on the app.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something you've never done, not interested, then it's left. And if something you've never done, would like to do, then it's right. And we add it to your list. Okay,
Okay.
first one, ride a camel.
Oh, I've done that. Swipe up.
What's your first camel ride?
My first camel ride was in Cairo, Egypt at the pyramids. Totally spoiled. I know that's like very cliche, Sarah. Sure. Yeah, it was. No, it really was. So I went to the Merchant Marine Academy, like I said, and one of the things we had to do was to sail on our, get some on-job training while we were at school for a year. And one of our stops was not far from Cairo, and our ship's captain was like, go experience it, go have fun. So yeah, I rode around in the desert on a camel in Egypt in front of the pyramids.
Very awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, get hypnotized.
Oh, I've done that too. I would never do it again. So I guess it's an up and a left. Like pass.
Did it
It was
work or you didn't?
no, it didn't work, but I felt an obligation to pretend like it worked.
Oh,
So, because there was a friend of mine doing it for a school talent show, so I felt obligated to act like it kind of worked, and it definitely didn't. It was awful. I'm sure everyone could tell I was faking it.
oh, okay. Write a screenplay.
Ooh, I haven't done that, and I don't think I'd be interested in that. I don't. I don't think that's. I don't feel that's in my wheelhouse. I'm
Okay,
creative, but not that way.
fair enough. Wear a wig.
Oh, up, done that. Plenty of Halloween. Witch, mermaid, most recently Frozen. Done them all.
Done them all. All
Don't
right.
make a good blonde.
Ever had your car stolen?
No, and left.
Left
No,
on that
thank you.
one.
Mm.
Make soap.
Oh, right. I haven't done it, and I think that'd be fun. Yeah.
Okay. Eat at a food truck.
Oh, up. Yes.
Up. Do you remember your first food truck?
It came to school. I think. Yeah, I think it was when it went at college. It came to school. It was just provided by the dining staff as a break during exams from our normal dining hall lunch. So they had a food truck come into the center square of our school, and it was like roaches. Everyone was coming out of the buildings. They were so excited I think, and it wasn't even good food. I think it was like hot dogs and like carnival food, hot dogs, funnel cake,
Oh, so it wasn't one of those fancy food trucks that we see now.
No.
Okay. But I'm sure you've been to those since then.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. Okay. Tap dance.
I've done it, so right or up rather, and I was little. My mom put me in tap dancing class. Yeah, I mean that's probably pretty typical. I haven't done it since, so I guess I would maybe try it again. I don't know if I have the rhythm for it.
Donate diapers.
Swipe up. It wasn't donating though. It was for a friend's baby shower.
Yeah, this is donating. So donating
Yeah.
to an organization.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the experience would still be similar because I don't have kids.
Yeah.
So going down the diaper aisle, I don't think I've been so intimidated in a long time. I remember standing at the back of the aisle and just staring and going, I have no idea. I felt like I landed on Mars. I didn't know. What was I supposed to get? So.
Yeah, I had, my sister just had a baby and I told her I would get the diapers. And same thing, I got to the aisle and I didn't ask her what kind. And I get to the aisle and I was like, okay, I thought this was going to be, I thought this was going to be a no-brainer to figure out which ones to get. So yeah, I had to message her and say, can you tell me which ones I'm supposed to get? Because there's a lot more to select from.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, play bingo.
Oh, swipe up. I love bingo. It's one of
Love
my favorite
bingo.
things. I used to play it with my grandma all the time. It's one of my favorite things. That might make me an old lady, but I really do love bingo.
My first time going to play bingo at a casino, my stepmom had so many cards and she made me get more than one card, and she would get all hers done and she would look over and she's like, you're missing, and I'm like, I can't.
Very serious. It's a very serious affair.
It's just like you're supposed to look at the letter and the number, but I kept, for every number I kept looking at the entire card. Rookie thing to do, I guess. Have you ever won a big jackpot? Or
oh no, I don't win, Anne. I don't win. I couldn't live where you live. I don't win. I have the worst luck at any version of gambling. I have no poker face. No, I don't win. I don't win at scratch offs. I win at nothing.
Well, I'm there with, like, a pair in my family. I don't win, but they go in. We have the wrong attitude, Sarah. I gotta tell you, because they go in believing they're gonna win. I go in knowing I'm probably not gonna win, and then I make that a reality. But but every so often, which I barely ever play blackjack, but when I do play blackjack, sometimes I can get on the roll and I know when to quit. All right, so final question. How have you been making the best of the current situation with the pandemic?
Staying very busy. Staying very busy and trying to find different ways to still reach my audiences than what I would normally do with trying to meet them in person. So I think I've definitely taken an uptick on all of my social media. I've started meeting clients via Zoom, which is interesting and kind of fun. But then I've also been working on stuff that's been on the back burner. That's the staying busy part. So been working on a workbook for people who are trying to make big life transitions. Been working on a different book that I've just had in the background for so long, blogging. I do lots of blogging. So just finding ways to still do the same stuff and to get around to those other things that, that you say, someday I'll get to it. Well, someday has arrived.
Let's get her done.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing part of your morning, my evening with me. And as people are watching, it's either in the morning for you or afternoon, depending where you're watching from. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. I'll see you at our next meeting.